On September 17, 1862, the sun rose over a quiet stretch of farmland in Maryland. By nightfall, more Americans would fall than on any other single day in U.S. history. Not during World War II, not on D-Day, not even at Gettysburg. This was Antietam. And although many people have heard the name, few truly understand why this day changed America forever. By the fall of 1862, the Civil War was not going well for the United States. The Confederacy had won several major battles and felt confident enough to carry the war north. General Robert E. Lee believed that if he could win a decisive battle on Union soil, foreign nations like Britain and France might recognize the Confederacy as an independent country. Maryland, a border state with divided loyalties, became the target. Lee marched his army in, hoping to rally support and deliver a crushing blow to Union morale. But something completely unexpected happened. A Union soldier stumbled upon a small package on the ground. Inside, wrapped around 3 cigars, was a copy of Lee's Complete Battle Plans Special Order 191. It had been left behind by a Confederate officer entirely by accident. For the first time, a Union commander, General George McClellan, knew exactly where the Confederate Army was and where it was going. President Abraham Lincoln now had the opportunity he had been desperately waiting for. At dawn on September 17th, both armies began to move into position near a small creek called Antietam. Neither side fully understood how large this battle would become. The fighting started in a cornfield, with Union soldiers advancing through the tall stalks, only to be met with a storm of Confederate fire. It was brutal, close-quarters combat. From there, the battle spread slowly across the landscape, like a fire consuming everything in its path. It moved to a sunken farm road, later called Bloody Lane, where defenders held their ground for hours against repeated attacks. Hour by hour, more and more units were pulled into the chaos. The battlefield grew wider. The noise of thousands of rifles and cannons grew louder, becoming a constant, deafening roar. The confusion grew deeper. Neither side gained a clear advantage. It was just a relentless, grinding stalemate of death. What made Antietam so unique wasn't one single, dramatic moment. It was the constant, unrelenting pressure that lasted for 12 straight hours. Every time one side advanced, the other held its ground and pushed back. Every time momentum seemed to shift, it stopped again. Commanders struggled to see the full picture. The battlefield was shrouded in thick black smoke, making it impossible to know what was happening just a few hundred yards away. Messengers on horseback, carrying vital information, arrived late or not at all. Orders were misunderstood or became irrelevant by the time they reached the front lines. By midday, both armies were exhausted, shattered, and bleeding, but neither would retreat. Men fought over the same small bridges, fields, and woodlots for hours, with the ground changing hands multiple times. It was a day that simply would not end. When the fighting finally slowed as the sun began to set, the true scale of the day became tragically clear. Over 23,000 Americans were killed, wounded, or missing in a single 12-hour period. That's more casualties than all other American wars in the 19th century combined. Families across the country, north and south, would soon receive letters they never expected, learning that a son, a brother, or a husband was gone. For the first time, Americans were forced to confront the true, horrifying cost of the Civil War. Photographers arrived on the scene shortly after, and their images of the dead shocked the nation. The battlefield itself became a symbol not of glory or heroism, but of immense, heartbreaking sacrifice. Militarily, the Battle of Antietam was a draw. Neither side achieved a decisive victory, but strategically, it changed everything. Lee's first invasion of the North was stopped cold. The battered Confederate Army had no choice but to retreat back into Virginia. And that tactical stalemate gave President Abraham Lincoln exactly the victory he needed. For months, Lincoln had been waiting for a Union success to announce a radical new policy. He worried that if he did it after a defeat, it would look like an act of desperation. Just 5 days after the battle, Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. With the stroke of a pen, the entire purpose of the war was transformed. It was no longer just about preserving the Union. It was now a fight to end slavery. This single day reshaped the moral and political landscape of the entire war. Antietam was a crucial turning point in American history. It ensured that European powers, who were cautiously watching from the sidelines, would stay out of the conflict. By linking the Union cause to the abolition of slavery, Lincoln made it politically impossible for countries like Britain and France to support the Confederacy. The battle also strengthened resolve in the North, providing a much-needed boost in morale after a long string of defeats. It redefined what America stood for. And yet, despite its incredible importance, Antietam is often overshadowed by larger battles like Gettysburg. But it's essential to remember that without Antietam, there might not have been a Gettysburg. Without this bloody day in Maryland, the Civil War and the United States itself might have ended very differently. September 17, 1862, was not just a battle. It was the moment America chose its future. It was the day the country began to pivot away from a union that tolerated slavery toward one that would fight for freedom. It remains the bloodiest single day in U.S. history, and one of the most important. Thanks for watching. If you think Antietam was shocking, wait until you hear about the winter disaster that nearly erased an American city.